And welcome back. He's one of the most notorious tyrants in the Bible, King Nebuchadnezzar of the mighty Babylonian Empire. I recently visited the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. to get an up-close look at ancient artifacts from Nebuchadnezzar and get a window into the mind of this infamous ruler who actually played a very crucial role in Israel's history. Take a look.
Nebuchadnezzar is one of the most powerful figures in the ancient Near East. He's the guy who really ends the power of Egypt in the ancient Near East. In about the year 605 BC, there's a big battle. Egypt is kind of pushed aside. He comes to the throne and reigns for a very long period, about 43 years. And it's during this time that the kingdom of Judah, the southern kingdom, is really struggling. They're aligning with Egypt. That doesn't work out. They don't have a lot of power. And Nebuchadnezzar is the one who finally comes in and destroys Jerusalem in 586, destroys the temple, takes all the wealth away, takes all the powerful people away, and it's really the end of the kingdom of Judah.
His forces burned down the temple. They destroyed Jerusalem. Then what happens with the Jewish survivors from Jerusalem? What does Nebuchadnezzar do next?
Well, this is the beginning of the Babylonian exile, as it's called, and he takes, really it goes in two phases. First in 597 with Jehoiachin. He comes in, and that's really where most of the treasures are taken away. He takes away the royal family. He takes away all the artisans and skilled workers and takes them off to Babylon in 597 and installs kind of a puppet king, Zedekiah. Zedekiah, 10 years later, thinks it's a smart idea to rebel, which it really wasn't. Nebuchadnezzar comes back and just completely lays waste to the rest of the things. So he's kind of the character, the individual that Daniel has to interact with and deal with all the rules. Let's start with the two cylinders. It's a pretty interesting concept. So, typically when somebody dedicates a building, they're going to want to put their name on it, right? Mm-hmm. And so everybody knows who it is. Sure. Well, these cylinders would have these inscriptions written in Akkadian, is the language.
That was the language used in ancient Babylon.
In ancient Babylon, right. The handwriting or the script is cuneiform, so it's written with these wooden styluses, kind of block letters pressed into clay. And the inscriptions talk about, again, how great Nebuchadnezzar is, talk about his victories, how the gods should look down on him with favor, sharpen his weapons against the enemies, these kinds of things. But these cylinders were not on sort of public display. They were actually buried inside the walls. So in the corners and kind of spaced along the walls, these cylinders would be buried, not so that the common person would see how great Nebuchadnezzar was, but so that the gods would see how great he was.
Yes, he's praising Marduk and these pagan gods, but there were times when Nebuchadnezzar acknowledged the God of Israel, the God of the Bible, right?
Yeah, that's the way Daniel describes it, that there were these episodes, again, the statue, of course, with the fiery furnace, the diet that Daniel and his compatriots follow, right, that he's forced to acknowledge that maybe there's something else alongside here.
Yeah, and God kind of drove him into the wilderness for a time there as well.
And there's references to his madness even outside the biblical material as well. This brick is actually pretty important. It was a brick, we don't know exactly where it would have been in the building, but again, it has an inscription that talks about Nebuchadnezzar's power and wealth and might. There are examples, similar bricks known from other sites. But typically a brick would have kind of a pre-made pattern, and they would just, like a mold, and they would press it into the brick, and you'd have multiple copies. Well, this particular brick is unique because it's handmade. It's a common inscription, but it's a handmade inscription, so it's pretty rare. And if you can get a good shot of it, it's very complete. So a lot of bricks are broken.
We always love talking to you with these incredible exhibits and delving into the history of the Bible 2,500 years back. Yeah. Amazing stuff, Jeff. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks. We appreciate you. Up next, my final thoughts on some exciting new projects that our Watchman team will be bringing you very soon. Find out more after the break. Stick around.